11. When were you diagnosed with type 1, and what was the process of your diagnosis?
I was diagnosed in November of 1999, and the process was I had some symptoms for probably a couple weeks. I was really thirsty, going to the bathroom a lot, falling asleep pretty much every time I ate, or after I ate, and so I made an appointment and went in to the doctor, and they did a blood test and showed that I had a very high blood sugar.
What are some of the possible complications of diabetes, and how do the risks happen?
Well, there's two types of complications. One is from having a low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia comes from taking too much insulin or not eating enough food to cover your insulin. And hypoglycemia comes on very rapidly and can cause you to do things like lose your balance, drive a car off the roadway, get in a car accident, do things like that that could have a really bad consequence in the short term. The longer term effects are from hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar. So if you have uncontrolled or not very well controlled diabetes, and you've had diabetes for a very long time, you can have things like heart disease, strokes, amputations, blindness, and really anything that you hear of happening to a much older person can happen much quicker or earlier in life if you have uncontrolled diabetes.
What are, if any, complications that you've had with the disease?
Luckily, I've had no bad effects from the disease in terms of long-term complications from hyperglycemia. I've had very good control, but sometimes with very good control, as you know, comes hypoglycemia, low blood sugars. And the worst case scenario was I drove off the highway once from a low blood sugar, didn't get hurt or hurt anyone else, and I had one other time that a emergency room, paramedic had to come in an ambulance and give me an IV to bring my sugar up very quickly. So I didn't have any effect from that other than being basically out of it for a short time.
What is your routine of changing your pump or checking your blood sugar?
I check my blood sugar using finger sticks, so a very small drop of blood on a strip into a meter, which reads the number, blood glucose number, and tells me what to do or not do. I check, depending on the day, but anywhere from 4 to 12 times a day. Probably 6 is average. I use a continuous glucose monitor, which is a small sensor that I insert with a short cannula or needle. I insert that every 7 days, and that takes readings that show up on my phone and show me some more information on trending or how quickly I might be going high or low, so that in between blood checks, finger sticks, I can still have an idea if I'm in the clear or not.
What part?
And I think you asked me about my pump. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
The pump I change, infusion pump, is how I get insulin into my body, and I change that every 3 days.
What parts of the disease do you personally see as a setback in your daily life?
Type 1 is something that doesn't take a shift off. It doesn't take the weekend off, as you know. So it's grueling to have type 1 and to deal with it every moment of every day. So it comes up. I don't use it as a crutch by any stretch, but it takes planning so that for instance, driving a car, and exercising, you have to take it into account every activity that you do, so that you avoid some of the short-term consequences. So it's there's no one activity that worries me or I plan for more than others, but it's something that always enters into my head, has to enter into my head.
That's it?
Nice job. That?
No.